Ladies and gentlemen, we've got news updates here today. I'm going to be going a little bit more rapid fire instead of just talking about one topic. I'm going to probably go over 5 or 6 different things here, beginning with the 50% tariff on to Brazil that will be imposed starting August 1st. So you could think maybe there'll be a negotiation between the United States and Brazil, but a 50% tariff, that's a hike up from the 10%. Right now, Trump is deciding with a lot of these smaller countries. Brazil is around our 10th biggest trading partner. People normally think it's a lot higher than that, but it's around 10. It's around 2% of our global trade. So a 50% tariff on 2% of our global trade is probably not going to impact much. Certain sectors possibly, like coffee. But in terms of the 50% tariff, Trump has had issues dealing with their government. They're very socialist. They've got a woman in there now, and there's a lot of political prosecution happening in Brazil. So Trump isn't too happy, but this is a situation to where, considering there's a timeline and there's a deadline, it's not like the 50% tariff is imposed right now. Even if it were, Brazil hypothetically could negotiate it down depending on what they do. It just depends. What is the appetite for Trump to really keep a 50% tariff on Brazil? We will have to see, but either way, right now it's at 50%, and it's nothing catastrophic because our trade with them is so minimal compared to the rest of the world. It's not nothing, especially in sectors that more heavily rely on imports from Brazil. But overall, this is probably a situation to where it'll be negotiated out. And if it's not negotiated out, 50% tariff will remain. At least that's what I would assume right now. We also have an interesting thing that happened yesterday. So this is Trump's Secretary of Agriculture, I believe, announcing full court press to ban China from buying U.S. farmland. This seems like a very, very, very obvious thing for conservatives. This has been a big thing that's gone around in politics for the last like 4 or 5 years, with people noticing China strategically buying farmland surrounding military bases, which it's illegal for a U.S. citizen to buy land in China. Why would we allow them to strategically do this? But Trump gave a very strange answer. Now, you could say this is just because he doesn't want to give the media anything when it comes to his relationship with Xi, but this answer really surprised me from Trump.
Also announced this week that they are going to start limiting Chinese ownership of American farmland. Why do you think that the Chinese have been buying up all this farmland in our country so close to military installations?
Well, I don't want to get into that. I have a very good relationship with President Xi. We're going to see, and I'm going to, they're going to be making a recommendation to me, but we have a very good relationship. As you know, they're paying a lot of tariffs to the United States now, and so I'm not going to get into that right now.
And of course, all the liberals in the comments, oh, it's the U.S. corporations that pay the tariffs. Well, then why does China hit the United States with reciprocal tariffs? It's because their products are less attractive for the U.S. consumer when they're hit with a tariff. So the tariffs do hurt China. Now, whether or not they're paying indirectly because their products are not as attractive and they desperately need the U.S. consumer base. But then the people in the comments, oh, Trump is wrong. But the overall point of this video is, it surprises me. I mean, I guess Trump wants to keep a very good relationship with Xi Jinping, but I mean, it seems very obvious China was strategically buying up many acres of farmland in a lot of rural areas of the United States. Whether they're doing it strategically or not, that should not be allowed. That should be illegal. I mean, it seems like there should be some type of parameters put in place to not allow something like that. And it seems like it's a very easy win for Republicans. Now, again, maybe he's trying to keep a good relationship, but I found that answer to be a little bit surprising. You also have district judge blocking Trump's order to end birthright citizenship for illegal aliens. So this is like maybe the 19th injunction. So we're going to need the Supreme Court again. Then they're going to rule on Trump's side. Then we're going to get a different district judge. Because remember, the Supreme Court's already ruled that they can't give out these injunctions, but that was a very specific thing. So it's just the same political fodder. The birthright citizenship, if you really go back to it, that's the 14th Amendment. The 13th Amendment ended slavery. The 14th Amendment came like 2 or 3 years later to ensure the rights. I mean, go back to the 1800s. This was not based about immigration. This new idea on how they've weaponized birthright citizenship. That's the whole idea of illegal people having children in the country and then them becoming anchor babies. And so it's a big issue. And it was never what the 14th Amendment was intended for. That's why we want the Supreme Court to reinterpret the 14th Amendment. Now, the chances of that happening is not very likely, unfortunately, because it does open up other, you're going to reinterpret the 14th Amendment. Well, you're going to have to reinterpret other amendments. But the 14th Amendment is very unique to where it was to guarantee slaves' rights, had nothing to do with mass immigration that we've seen where there's so many illegals in this country and then they have children and then their children are immediately legal because they were born in the United States even though their parents were illegal. It's a big problem, and it's never what the 14th Amendment was intended for. It's basically gaming the system via an amendment. So whether or not, I mean, this is a temporary thing what Trump has done. They would have to reinterpret the amendment to make it to where birthright citizenship is specifically stated. I mean, we have other amendments that are pretty much not in use at this point, like the Third Amendment. And you could say, well, this 14th Amendment was based off of slavery, and it was for a certain period of time to ensure that slaves and the children of slaves had rights. And so that's really what people have to understand when it comes to the 14th Amendment. But this is just more crap with these. I mean, this is the only thing that they can do is they try and limit Trump. They don't have either chamber, so this is what they have to do. It's all these district judges. It's terrible. I mean, even when it comes to them trying to block certain funds, Trump passed the big, beautiful bill, and they said, well, there was a district judge that tried to stop it. And then they said, oh, you can't do this because you can't take away Medicaid. And how about that? I mean, we've got so much stuff going on where you'll still get liberals that say, and I saw Scott Jennings try and debate one of them on CNN. They're still trying to argue that illegal immigrants do not receive health care. Number one, a lot of these Democrats, their overall point is that everyone should get health care. And so they argue that. So you would think that they would endorse illegals getting health care. I don't know why they're trying to argue now illegals don't get it. It's because they have to move their position. But they try and argue that illegals don't get it. It's in the Californian law that all Californians, regardless, it says it in there, regardless of legal status, have access to Medicaid. And so how else would we be able to cut billions and billions of dollars annually in Medicaid? Where's that money being cut from? It's not just being cut from able-bodied people. And by the way, the able-bodied people thing is another psyop. That if you look at that and what it is it's people that are not working that are able-bodied. It's basically saying you can't game the system. That is something when it's localized, it's very popular. But they blow it up and they say, oh, they're just taking away everyone's health care. That's not what it is at all. There's no nuance. That's what they argue. See, this is the problem with entitlements and trying to reform the entitlements. They'll just immediately turn you into this terrible person. Well, we have an issue, and I agree. You want to talk about tax cuts for rich people, all this. I mean, it's heavy tax cuts for middle class as well. You want to talk about the military budget, the defense spending increasing. We could discuss that. But things like Medicaid and looking into Medicare and looking into Social Security, all of this has to be reformed. I mean, you look at those three big whoppers, it's like 55% of our overall total budget. And you add on the interest, that's up to 70, and then you add on the defense spending, it's very heavily. So we will see. I mean, also we'll see what happens with the potential rate cuts. Trump's letter to Brazil, so that's just Trump talking about what he's going to be doing. And then also you've got Gavin Newsome. So Gavin Newsome is in Florence, South Carolina. What is Gavin Newsome doing there? He's campaigning. Remember when the riots happened and Trump deployed the National Guard and Newsome made it this huge spectacle and they were advertising this huge speech, which was like 3 minutes long, talking about Trump and how he shouldn't have done that and he overstepped his executive power. Well, Newsome is legitimately campaigning for the 2028 Democratic primaries. South Carolina is one of the first states, I believe, that's going to be on the list, or traditionally it's one of the first states during the primary season. The Iowa caucus, I believe, is always one, the first. But then South Carolina is one of the top 2 or 3 after that in terms of primaries. This is insane. I mean, I don't understand. How could anyone, you're the governor of California. What are you doing? And you would think Newsome would have plenty of time in 2027 because, he's not allowed to run again in 2026 during the midterm. So I don't know what Newsome is doing here. I guess he thinks it's going to help him, but he's going out in South Carolina and talking about Trump and campaigning. He should be campaigning and criticizing J.D. Vance. I mean, that's where we're at. Because why else are you in South Carolina doing this? Because you're starting your 2028 campaign in July of 2025. We're not even under a year away from the midterms. So why don't you just criticize JD Vance? Remember, he wanted to debate JD Vance. He called JD Vance out to a debate, and that's embarrassing. You know, there's a time and a place to try and challenge someone to a debate, and if they don't accept, oh, I guess they look weak. But that was like Vance didn't even respond, and it showed desperation. And that's what that was. Because like Newsome wants any little breadcrumb of attention from the Trump administration. So I don't know what's going on with Newsome, but I thought that was just insane. And then that just goes back to and then, here you got Elon Musk saying releasing the Epstein files will be priority on his America. Listen, I put out videos about Epstein. I think the Epstein stuff's really bad. Trump should have handled it better. The administration, even if you're going with, and you could argue that this is even a worse outcome, or maybe it's not transparent at all, but they could have just done nothing. The Trump administration, they could have just gotten in, sat on this, said they were looking into it, and then just let the time pass, and nothing would have come of it, and people would be angry, but it would be nothing like this, because this is a clear outrage for many people to where they think that it's obvious there's some type of cover-up going on. There was horrible communication from Pam Bondi. It's either lying or it is a pure cover-up, or some type of crazy miscommunication where Bondi says it's all on my desk, and now she's saying, well, it's not the stuff that you originally thought. It was a bunch of, CP and just very bad stuff that we're not going to show with Epstein, but with no one else. And so it's a really, really bad look for the administration. But Musk, this is the uniparty, absolutely. And so this is what he would attack for sure. Democrats, Republicans, the Dems had 4 years. None of this was talked about. You can criticize Trump. You can say that whatever this is, cover up, lying, it's very bad. And then Israel having the celebratory dinner. I mean, it's just, because think about the timeline in Israel coming to the White House. They put it out on Sunday night, trying to sweep it under. That was like 8:30 on Sunday night. I was streaming. 8:30 on Sunday night news dump, and just to sweep it. And then they announced the investigations against Comey the next day. But think about that. You put it out on Sunday night. The Netanyahu dinner is on Monday night. Apparently Netanyahu stayed through Wednesday, at least. I saw a meeting with Hegseth on Wednesday, Netanyahu. So, and we know the whole idea of CIA, FBI, Mossad, 3 major players potentially, and that would be heavily exposed if this stuff came out. And it's like, well, their own government is protecting them. A lot of people have distrust now in Trump because of it. And because Trump is they're saying Trump is part of it. Trump is part of this apparatus that is just protecting themselves. And so it is a big problem. And whatever Trump's going to do, I mean, there are people trying to cope and say, well, maybe this is a 5D chess. Maybe this is Trump having blackmail on Israel and using this. And I don't think so. I mean, it just seems like such a terrible political nightmare, and just, I don't think you would do that. But we will have to see. Either way, Musk is certainly, his America Party, they're going to try and siphon off a few seats here and there. I don't know if they're going to be able to. It's hard to say, because this is a 2-party system. You bring a third party into it, normally the third party is not going to do very well. But the funding apparatus that this third party is going to have is way, way more than any other third party we've seen recently. So it's going to be a different ball game. So it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Also, like the video down below.